It's really thrilling and unusual to be talking to Dr. Saskia. Dr. Saskia is a global leader, an educational and academic trainer, and she is also a human rights activist. Doctor, could you please introduce yourself and what do you do for business?
Yes, my name is Saskia Harkema. I'm an academic. I'm an expert in innovation, entrepreneurship, and change management. And I also I work for several universities and organizations across the world. And I'm also CEO and founder of Faces of Change, which works with refugees and marginalized groups. But I'm most passionate about teaching and training and working with youth.
So your opinion is that we work in a system that, let's say it's a one system that fits all. What's your opinion about that?
Yes, according to me, the educational system needs to be changed because it's built on ideas and premises which go back to 200 years ago. So it was, it's kind of I say it's called built on the principles of Taylorism, which yeah, it's very old. And somehow it doesn't fit anymore. That's one with how the world has changed. But also when you look at young people, it's not one size fits all. Everybody is unique and has their talents and dreams.
From your point of view, what are the main negative points or the main downsides of the education systems now?
It's like a supply chain. You have input and often also the financing. I'm not saying everywhere, but financing is based on the input, and the input is the number of students coming in. They have to go through a certain process. This is throughput. This has to be as efficient as possible. So you want as many people as possible to graduate. And then the output is that you have students which have finished their studies. I mean, if you even talk about it this way, it already shows that it's devoid of, let's say, the humane part of what teaching is about and educating is about.
So what changes would you like to take place?
I think we should much more acknowledge and also tap into the fact that each young person is unique with his and her talents and dreams. And I was recently teaching an online course with, again, was I think 12 nationalities. And I was teaching them about other things and, you know, the knowledge component. And then they said to me, I've never learned so much in this course throughout my career. And there were some of them were in the last year of their studies. I found that I was very surprised, but not in a positive sense. So somehow students, what they do is they kind of, they also develop this habit of just going through the process without thinking, do I enjoy what I'm doing? Is this what I want to be doing? Am I learning what I'm supposed to be learning? They don't even ask that question. They're just like in a supply chain.
So my other question is, it's really difficult on the ground to change this system with a lot of administration, with a lot of laws and so on. What roles should the teachers play?
I think teachers should be much more critical because it's difficult, you know, once you're part of the system, and I've been part of the system 20 years, it's difficult to step out of it because there is so much administration. And so the only way that you can change is challenge that. And but in any case, try to, in your teaching, find the room to maneuver. And I know it's difficult. This is one of the reasons that I left education and started to invest much more in informal teaching.
The other question is on the side of the students. You say that the students is like going automatically through the process. What kind of mentality would you like to be developed in the students' mind by the students themselves?
Well, I think this partly is also cultural. I have to admit that. So, of course, there is also a cultural component in the sense that there are cultures where parents have a very important say in what their children should study. And then obviously this also has an influence on your choices. And what my plea would be that we give much more space to young people to really think about what they want to do with their lives. And it's not only getting a degree and following a certain education. It's what do you want to do with your life, and what do you want to do in this world, and how do you want to contribute to this world? And then you're not only working on developing knowledge and getting a certificate, but also on skills and who you are as a human being.
So my other question is, what is the role of passion in education?
It's fundamental. For me, it's fundamental. So the moment you notice, and I've noticed that throughout my career, of course, that students start, for instance, the module by asking, what is the exam? How many books do I have to read? What questions are you going to ask? I already know that they don't have the right mindset, and I don't blame them, because they're just getting, they want to pass the exam. But if you say to them, but listen, if you have to get out of this module what you need to become whatever you want, and then the exam will follow. So in a sense, we are also educating this young people to think like this. We cannot, we cannot blame them for that. So passion is that you really are asking students, whatever topic, what are you passionate about? And then what do you need from me as a teacher to somehow help you to develop this passion?
So my other question is, how do you link education to selecting one's career later on?
It's fundamental. Education is, I would say, one of the most important pillars in a society, because it's about formation and shaping young people and individuals also later, if you talk about lifelong learning. And sorry, can you repeat your question? So linking education to a career.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as I say, it depends on, first of all, there is the pressure of society, and then there's the pressure also can be from peers. And I think you have to reclaim your right as an individual to make your choices and say, listen, and I have examples, I once met a young woman from Saudi Arabia. She had two choices. She could become an engineer or a doctor. And she said, I want to become a teacher. This is my passion. And she did follow her dream. It was not easy, but she did follow. So you have to follow your dream. If you want to become an artist and you are being pressed and pushed to become an engineer, then you have to question, is this what I really want to do?
Yeah, my other question is, go ahead, doctor.
Well, if you see the numbers of people that drop out, it's very big. And I think this is one of the reasons. We forget to ask them, what are you passionate about?
Yeah, very true. My other question is, do you have other criteria for how to choose one's career in the future?
I also think it has to do with your mission and your purpose. So it's not only what you're passionate about, but what do you feel is your mission? And your mission is also linked to your norms and values. And the norms and values are things that you got from your parents, people that are really close to you. And some of these norms you may feel that are somehow an obstacle, and that's okay. So I think if it's really rooted and aligned with your norms and values and who you are, then your choice will also be a consequence of something which you feel very deeply about and are very motivated about.
What is your opinion about the labor market currently?
Yeah, of course, the labor market is changing dramatically, and now with this quarantine, things haven't improved at all. But the labor market was already changing dramatically. We have to be aware of that. One of the most important trends was robotization and also flexibilization of the labor, that you don't have permanent contracts anymore. And this quarantine has also made, let's say, the online or virtual work, it's basically the most dominant way of working at present. Well, what I think is that somehow we'll have to redefine what the place of work is in our life. And this has to do with developments like artificial intelligence and robotization and flexibilization. So we will have to somehow rethink that. And this not only reflects rethinking our relation to work, but in general, what is the place of work in an economic system if a lot of work is going to be replaced by robots? I think this is a very valid question. Because
So,
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, doctor.
Well, if you look at the figures, the estimated figures of unemployment, especially among people younger than 25 years, are very high. And this has partly to do with this. So I think also young people should think of entrepreneurship as really a very interesting option. Why would you want to work for someone? Why don't you start your own business? There's enough possibilities to start all kinds of new businesses. So I would grab that opportunity.
What would you ask from the young people in order to be able to step into leadership roles?
You have to dare to look at yourself and start an inner journey of self-awareness. You have to dare to do that. And I do that. I often use an instrument, the tree of life, for that. So we are metaphorically like a tree, and really start this inner journey at looking, okay, what have I learned? What have I done till now? And if you want to become a leader, you have to have a thorough understanding of who you are, because then you can lead. And then you also will not lead by learning tricks and tips, but really lead by example. And then you will also act, because this is what leadership is about, should be about. You are not only acting in your self-interest, but upon something which is larger than yourself. Then you are a good leader.
So my second question is, like in the education system, you say like students are usually go through an automatic process. They don't have a choice. They don't have an opinion. And now you are advising and recommending entrepreneurship, which is basically a personal adventure. How can these people change their attitudes from being the subject of the education system into being the manipulator, the manager, the creator of the business?
Creator, yeah. Well, it's very simple. All these education doesn't exist without students. So they are the main player. So instead of behaving like you are just one, I call it a bolt in a system, you're the key player. So reclaim also your right to have an opinion about what you need to accomplish whatever you want. And don't just become servile and passive in going through these motions because you're pushed to do that. Oh, you have to, you only can get through if you pass your exams. Yes, of course you have to pass your exams. But you as a teacher have a duty to teach me something which is worthwhile for me. And in a sense, also teachers should be not only evaluated, which is happening a lot, but in a kind of conversation also talk about, okay, what is necessary to create an atmosphere of learning, which is also allowing reflection, introspection, and development of skills, not only knowledge. I always say to students, everything that you want to know, you can look up in Google. This is not what I'm going to teach you. I'm not going to teach you anything that you can look up in Google. I'm really going to teach you based on my long experience, by listening to what you are asking me, by listening to your stories, by looking at who you are, and then you will learn something which is worthwhile. Because what you can look up on Google, this is not worthwhile.
When can we get teachers to be entrepreneurs, or at least teach in an entrepreneurial sense?
Well, yeah, this has been a challenge for a long time, because in a sense, we as teachers are also part of the system, and we are not paid to be entrepreneurial. We are just paid to just follow also the curriculum and fit into the system. But I think it would be good if somehow teachers also are asked to be an entrepreneur, next to their teaching, to go through that experience and bring that into their lessons, because then they're bringing in also life experiences which are so worthwhile and so important. But it's not easy, because the system doesn't ask you to be entrepreneurial.
My other question is, if this change is so fundamental and so important to the society, why don't we see a huge push for the entrepreneurial sense in our students from the society, from the leadership?
Well, I think in general, we've always, or not always, but education educates for a career, you know, in a company. And this has to do partly, of course, also with security. So if you ask young people what kind of career they envisage, it's a career, mostly the large companies, because it gives security. So in a sense, we have to also, I think, teach students that to take risks is something from which you can learn a lot. Why would you always seek security in your life? It has to do also with how you see yourself in this journey that you go through. And yeah, so entrepreneurship is always not out of choice, but out of necessity often. And we should start also, I think, promoting much more and engaging young people and challenging them to think about why they seek so much security. And they will discover, this is where this tree of life helps, that this often comes from parents, because we as parents want the best for our children. We want them to be safe, we want them to be healthy, we want them to, but why would we want that so much for them? We also made mistakes, we also fell often. So I think also we as parents have a role in that respect.
What would you like to change in the society, in the thinking of the people to embrace this new trend of education?
Well, to be honest, I really think we have to transform the educational system. This is not incremental innovation. This is radical innovation. We have to disrupt the system, and we have to be very creative, and we have to be daring and bold to really change it, so that, first of all, I'm sure that also the dropouts, that will decrease the numbers, and take as a starting point what youth are telling us. Because youth are telling us a lot, but we're not listening enough to them. And they're often telling us that they don't enjoy what they're doing. They cannot wait till they are finished with doing, because they can finally do what they want to do. This is not how education should be. Education should be a place where you really are enjoying yourself, you're learning, you're trying things out, failing, discovering, exploring, creating, imagining, all these things. It's not just getting your exams. This is so limited.
What happens to those who fail to get along with the new trend, with the current trend in education and in the labor market?
You mean if they don't, if we keep it as it is?
Yeah.
Well, I think this has to do with the question, you know, how do you see what is happening now, this pandemic? Is this purely a healthcare crisis, as it's coined and labeled, or is this a crisis in our civilization, in humanity? And I'm of an opinion that it's a crisis in a far broader sense. It has brought to light the fragility of our system, and also where our systems are failing. And it's not only healthcare. It's also in education. It's become very visible that we somehow also, we are educating people in a very narrow sense, so that even for now companies, which they are required to be very creative, you know, they have to do something, otherwise they will go bankrupt. They really are struggling with that. It should be ingrained in their way of working, in the way they have structured their organization, that creativity is part of it, and trying and just transforming and adapting and changing. But this is not what's part of, because this is not part of education. This is not how we educate managers or whatever other expertise you need in an organization. Yeah.
My understanding is that you also do humanitarian efforts. How much education or the educator's sense affect your humanitarian efforts?
A lot, because I started to work as a humanitarian long ago, and the fact that we have so much inequality in the world, well, yeah, we speak that we have made so much progress if you compare to 200 years ago. Well, it's a matter of opinion. I think there are far too many people still disempowered, marginalized, poor, have no access to education, electricity, water, you name it. And I think this is, if you look at the amount of wealth we create worldwide, it's a matter of how do you redistribute it? You know, how do we distribute so that everybody gets access? So everybody should have access to education, healthcare, and these things. And yeah, I think that I noticed in my teaching, in every topic I was teaching, always placing it in this larger context, but look at what's happening in the world. And this is what students appreciated, because they didn't have this narrow view on one topic, but they could relate it to, okay, but this is how it somehow contributes to what's happening in the world. And then you're raising another type of you're educating young people differently, because they take responsibility, not only for their very narrow expertise, but how they, with maybe small acts, can contribute to this larger society and contribute also to improving the world, because it needs to be improved.
Yeah, it needs to be improved. What else would you like to say, Doctor?
Well, I have put all my hopes on young people. All my hopes. I have, without limits, I have hope and also confidence in young people. And what I hope very much now in this time of uncertainty and of chaos, that youth really stand up, and they're doing that, and say, wait a minute, this is our world, this is our future. So we are going to speak up, we are going to be involved in the debate, we're going to discuss, we are going to challenge, and we are going to recreate the world. You have my full support.
It has been more than amazing talking to you, Doctor, today. I really appreciate your unusual and extraordinary ideas about education and young people. Thank you so much indeed.
Yes, you're welcome.